here with The Light, bringing you another news briefing. Now, if you're new, welcome to the channel. If you are not new, welcome back. And to all of you, please do like and subscribe. That is how you can support me and support my channel. Now, today, even though I usually am talking about the cannabis industry, industrial hemp, and new and innovative technology there, and talking about the stock market, I want to talk a little bit today about the global headwinds that are facing the economy right now. What's going on at a number of flashpoints around the world. Now, we've already seen these headwinds facing the global economy, creating some volatility with the tariffs and this trade war with China. This seems to have eased back a little, but there's still no resolution as far as the trade deal goes. And there's continuing escalation between Hong Kong and these protesters in Hong Kong that are demanding more autonomy as a state from the communist regime of China. This has the potential to drag in the West, and it's also threatening Hong Kong's status as an international trade capital, being the one place that the communist system of China can really merge with the capitalist economy of the rest of the world. So that's a big event and something to continue to watch. And we also are watching the Brexit as the result and the outcome of that is still yet to be undetermined. It looks like there's still no deal. They're postponing and taking deliberate steps to try and make some kind of deal, but we really have no concrete information to go off of, so it's very hard to predict how that is going to affect the European Union or how that's going to affect the global economy as well. However, there have been a lot of things happening in the cannabis industry with medical legalization in Italy, in Germany, licensing of the medical sale of cannabis oils in the UK, and Spain and other countries as well. Joining on board. We see deals with Aurora Cannabis and with Canopy Growth Corporation with the UK now to supply cannabis oil. So there's still a lot of big stuff happening. And despite the turmoil that we see around the world, the cannabis industry is continuing to grow quite a bit. There have been quite a lot of talks about a U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement, and it seems like it actually might come to fruition sometime in the near future here with a new trade agreement, kind of building on the trade partnerships that were formed with NAFTA and hopefully just bolstering said partnerships. Now, this is also interesting because at the same time, the United States, Mexico, and Canada are fighting the cartels, and they have captured El Chapo, who is now held by the United States in Supermax security prison. But his son was recently captured by the Mexican federal police. This resulted in a massive gun battle in the streets of Mexico, and we've really got to keep those folks in our hearts and minds. Give a prayer to the people of Mexico because full-on gun battle erupted as the cartels broke out with military-grade weaponry against the police. The police were actually forced to surrender and let Guzman's son free. Now, this is quite a dangerous situation, and it's not uncommon to see this in Mexico with the police sometimes being outmanned and outgunned by the cartels. But Mexico currently has in legislation a bill to legalize cannabis, recreational and medical, the way that we have seen in Colorado. So this is a big deal. It legalizes 4 plants for home cultivation, rec and medical dispensaries, and it also has a very great bill with a provision in there to prevent pesticide use in legal cultivation of cannabis. And that's a big deal. It makes sure that the consumer isn't getting a pesticide-laden, contaminated product. It makes sure that the industry stays close to organic cultivation practices and that the common residuals and chemicals found in genetically modified common agriculture are not found in cannabis in the future. So that's a big deal. But they're also moving with decriminalization, which actually began this entire process, as a judge in Mexico declared that the prohibition on cannabis is unconstitutional, setting a huge international precedent, really. And now, as a number of judges have agreed with this opinion, a bill is going forward to legalize cannabis, soon to be pinning the United States between Canada and Mexico with federal legalization. So it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. But truly, this legalization effort at its core core is an effort against the cartels and these criminal organizations that are capturing all the revenue of black market drug sales. So Mexico is also moving, as you see in this article here by the marijuana movement, toward potential decriminalization of all drugs, to continue to attack the money of the cartels. And this is a very smart move, as these are nonviolent crimes that have been pursued with the prohibition of drugs and cannabis for so many years. They're not really protecting people. They're prosecuting nonviolent crimes, and they're furthering the success of this black market, keeping everything underground, keeping people uneducated and unaware of these drugs, and keeping these drugs from being studied at the same time. So we might see this continue to steamroll in the future with more of these kind of movements by state and government agencies toward decriminalization, as this is really the entire argument behind the legalization of cannabis and potential decriminalization of other drugs. We've just got to capture the revenue from these criminal organizations, and the Mexican Congress appears to be moving on the right track, as they are really having to face the issue at home, right on their doorstep. So, folks, we are going to keep the people of Mexico in our hearts and minds, as well as the people around the world. There's more conflict in the Middle East. We've got to watch that, as that can affect the price of oil. Israel seems like it's bracing for an attack from Iran, and Iran has been publishing media saying they're prepared for war. They've also published media showing this new piece of tech to augment artillery for a guided projectile. So there's a lot of warfare and escalation and tension happening in the Middle East too. We see U.S. troops backing out of Syria with people throwing rocks and potatoes at them, as the troops are forced on a federal directive to leave the area, pull back into Iraq, leaving ISIS and some of their allies to fight it out among the Turkish forces that are now moving into the area, creating a northern front. So there's a lot happening in the world. We see a lot happening with cannabis, and hopefully a brighter future. I really do see resolution coming before the end of 2020 on a number of these issues. So everyone, I hope that this was an interesting news update. I hope that this information is good for you. Thanks for tuning in to this global news briefing for the headwinds that the global economy faces in 2020. I'll see you all soon in another video, but until then, much love.